You know that feeling of having an empty stomach, not from hunger, but from the anxiety of checking your bank account balance? That fear of a notification sound, because you know it can only be a past due bill? I know that feeling. I lived that nightmare. My life was a constant. I can't, I don't have, there isn't. Every day was a battle against pride, desperation, and shame. I felt trapped in a maze with no way out, a glass cage where I could see the life I wanted, but couldn't reach it. The people around me were moving forward, buying houses, traveling, building their dreams, while I was stuck, buried under a mountain of debt and lost opportunities. Each failure was added to an endless list. I had lost hope, the engine of any person. But what I didn't know at that moment, what I didn't dare to believe, was that the solution wasn't in a lottery ticket or a miraculous loan, but in a mindset shift, a strategy that was in front of me the whole time. In this video, I won't just tell you how I got up from absolute zero, but I'll show you the exact map, the steps I followed to earn my first $10,000. And it's not about luck or a special talent. It's about a method, a system that anyone, no matter how broke they are, can replicate. Stay with me, because I promise you that the answer to that big question, how I got off the bottom to earn $10,000, is going to change your life. My story isn't one of a garage or a startup. It's a story of failure. My days consisted of sending resumes to companies that never responded, of taking $5 jobs on freelance platforms that barely covered the cost of electricity. My phone was an object of torture. Every time it rang, I felt a knot in my stomach, fearing it was a debt collector or a reminder that I hadn't managed to pay my bills. I lived with the constant feeling of letting everyone down, my family, my friends, and, most of all, myself. My food was reduced to the cheapest, to whatever I could stretch for days. The creativity I once had to look for opportunities had dissipated, replaced by mental exhaustion and a deep cynicism. I saw people around me talking about finances, investments, opportunities, and I felt a silent rage. How could they talk about that when I couldn't even pay the rent? I felt like the world wasn't made for me. That wealth was an exclusive club, a game with rules I didn't know and to which I would never be invited. I tried everything. I sold things I no longer used. I did delivery jobs. I invested my last money in a cryptocurrency that crashed in a matter of hours. Each failed attempt was another nail in the coffin of my self-esteem. The feeling of helplessness was so overwhelming that it paralyzed me. I was at the bottom, and worst of all, I believed I deserved to be there. The turning point wasn't an account with $10,000, but the reflection of my own face in the mirror. I didn't see a warrior. I saw someone who had given up. Despair had become my comfort zone, and I had gotten used to the idea that life was like this, an endless struggle without reward. But one morning, something clicked. It wasn't a big event, nor was it advice from a millionaire. It was an inner voice, the first one I had heard in a long time that wasn't full of self-pity. I told myself, enough. You're sinking because you've stopped swimming. At that moment, I understood that the problem wasn't money, the system, or my lack of opportunities. The problem was my mindset. I realized that my internal dialogue was my worst enemy, constantly repeating, I can't, and this is just how I am. I decided that, from that instant on, I would stop being the victim of my own story and become the protagonist. I threw all the I can'ts out the window. No more excuses. No more it's too difficult. My only task would be to find a way to move forward, 1 centimeter at a time if necessary. It was a terrifying decision. It meant leaving behind the security of my misery to face the uncertainty of a possible success. It was the first step, and it was the hardest, because it didn't involve money, but a complete restructuring of my will. The epiphany wasn't that I could earn $10,000, but that I could try, with all my might, no matter what happened. With this new mindset, my next step was crucial. I couldn't afford another mistake. I dove into a digital rabbit hole, researching everything I could about how to make money. And what I found was, for the most part, disappointing. 99% were scam traps, empty promises, and schemes that guaranteed effortless wealth. Most money gurus just wanted to sell me an expensive course that promised secrets that didn't exist. I realized that my time and my little energy were my most valuable assets, and I couldn't waste them on shortcuts that led nowhere. I immediately dismissed everything that sounded too good to be true. Day trading without experience, miraculous investments in the next big thing. and systems that promised earnings while you slept. Those paths wouldn't lead me to $10,000. They would lead me to 10,000 more in debt. Instead, I looked for something solid, a strategy based on creating real value, a skill I could monetize. I focused on the idea that if I could solve a problem for someone else, money would be a consequence, not the main goal. My research led me to a simple conclusion. The safest and most sustainable path was not a secret formula, but the development of an in-demand skill, something people actually needed. Choosing this strategy was my first great victory because it was a choice based on reality and not fantasy. After days of searching, I found my first mechanism, my first real step towards the $10,000. It wasn't a business or an investment. It was a skill. To be exact, it was content writing and social media management. Sounds boring, right? But I realized that every business, big or small, needed an online presence. And my huge advantage was that I didn't need initial capital. I only needed my old computer and my will to learn. The first step was the simplest and the hardest, building my portfolio without having clients. I spent entire weeks creating fictional work samples. I wrote posts for fake blogs, created social media campaigns for non-existent businesses. I felt ridiculous, like I was playing at being a professional, but I knew that without proof of my ability, no one would hire me. This mechanism was a test of fire for my commitment. I had no earnings, no feedback, just blind faith in the process. Finally, with my small portfolio in hand, I faced the fear and sent my first cold email to a local business that I thought needed my help. I expected a no. I expected them to ignore me, but I knew it was a risk I had to take. That first email, that first tangible action, was the real beginning of my journey. And it was proof that the first step isn't about making money, but about gaining momentum. It's about taking the first swing at the wall of fear. After creating my portfolio, I felt invincible. I sent 10, 20, 50 emails. Most of the time, my inbox only received silence. When a company did respond, it was to offer me a job for a pittance, for a price that didn't even cover the time it took me to create the content. I remember one job in particular. I spent an entire weekend writing a series of articles for a travel blog. They paid me less than I would spend on a decent dinner, and the client asked for so many revisions that I ended up losing money and, more importantly, losing the little energy I had left.
The voice of doubt returned, whispering to Mistrzostwom Europy that I wasn't good enough, that this path was a fantasy. I saw my friends post their achievements on social media and felt like I was back at square one, that my turning point had been useless. The temptation to return to my old mindset, to the comfort of self-pity, was huge. I was exhausted, disillusioned, and on the verge of giving up. But this time, something was different. Despite the disappointment, I didn't throw in the towel. Instead of blaming the client or the market, I forced myself to analyze what had gone wrong. I realized that the problem wasn't that the path was impossible, but that my expectations were naive and my strategy flawed. The failures weren't a sign to stop, but a map showing Mistrzostwom Europy where not to go. I got up, licked my wounds, and prepared for the next battle, because failure was no longer a defeat, but a teacher. The analysis of my failures led Mistrzostwom Europy to my second mechanism, the one that truly changed the game. I realized that my problem wasn't a lack of skill, but a lack of specialization. I was trying to be a writer for everyone, which made Mistrzostwom Europy an expert for no one. I was competing with millions of people offering the same generic service. My new strategy was simple: become an expert in a specific niche. Instead of offering content writing, I decided to be the writer for a particular industry. I sat down and analyzed what topics I was passionate about and, at the same time, had good market potential. I chose the niche of sustainable technology and eco-friendly products. It was a scary move. I felt like I was limiting my opportunities, but it was the complete opposite. Suddenly, my portfolio, which was previously a mix of everything, had a clear focus. Instead of saying, I write articles, now I could say, I am the content specialist who helps your sustainable tech company educate its customers. This not only made Mistrzostwom Europy stand out from the crowd but also allowed Mistrzostwom Europy to charge higher prices. My value proposition became unique, and my audience, although smaller, was much more valuable. The next step was to send emails to companies in that niche. And the response, this time, was instant. There was no noise. There was no competition. There was a need that only could fill, and the clients knew it. This simple change, this niche hack, was the catalyst that took Mistrzostwom Europy from earning crumbs to having my first healthy bank account. Once I had my niche, my mindset changed in a fundamental way. I stopped thinking, how much will they pay Mistrzostwom Europy for this? And started thinking, what problem can I solve for this client? The goal was no longer money, but value. Every project became an opportunity to genuinely help a person or a business. Instead of simply delivering an article, I asked questions about their goals, their audience, their challenges. I didn't ghostwrite. I offered ideas on how to use the content to attract more clients, generate more leads, or build their brand. I became a partner, not just a provider. I remember my first client in the sustainable technology niche. I was writing for a blog about solar panels, but I realized that the real problem was attracting the right people. Instead of just delivering the work, I proposed a social media strategy and a free content calendar. They didn't pay Mistrzostwom Europy for it, but the result was incredible. Their views doubled and their subscriber list grew exponentially. This client not only became loyal but became my biggest advocate, recommending Mistrzostwom Europy to all their contacts. That is when I understood that true success isn't measured in the amount of money you make, but in the amount of value you deliver. Money is simply the universe rewarding your usefulness. This mindset shift gave Mistrzostwom Europy a competitive advantage that no other trick could match. And suddenly, work stopped being a burden and became a mission. With my new mindset, progress accelerated in a way I never imagined. My reputation in the niche grew, and I no longer had to search for clients. They came to Mistrzostwom Europy, referred to my satisfied clients. The demand for my services was so high that it gave Mistrzostwom Europy the power to raise my prices without fear of losing someone. It was an exciting and terrifying moment. The first time I quoted a price that was more than double what I had charged at the beginning, my voice trembled, but the client didn't even question it. They understood the value I was offering. I went from charging 20 for an article to 50, 10 to 100, and even 200 for bigger products. Instead of doing 1,000 small jobs, I focused on 5 or 6 high-quality clients who truly appreciated and paid for my expertise. I created a system. I used templates for my proposals, organized my tasks, and developed a routine to maximize my efficiency. The work that used to take Mistrzostwom Europy a day, I now get in a few hours. The goal of 10,000 stopped being a distant dream and became a number on my tracking dashboard. I could see the progress in real time. It wasn't a dramatic on a day to the next climb, but a constant rise, a graph that went up slowly but surely. The money didn't feel like a miraculous gain, but like the natural reward for the work I had done and the value I had delivered. Upon reaching the 10,000 mark, I realized that the most valuable lessons had nothing to do with money. The first lesson was that fear is the biggest limiter. It wasn't my skills or the market, but the voice in my head telling Mistrzostwom Europy don't try. Every time I felt fear when raising my prices or sending an email, I knew I was on the right path. Fear was my compass, pointing towards my growth. The second lesson was that consistency beats perfection. At first, I was obsessed with every article being a masterpiece, which slowed Mistrzostwom Europy down. I learned that it was more important to consistently deliver good work than perfect work once in a while. Action, however imperfect, was what generated results. It's not about working hard, but about working with purpose. Many of my friends worked hard at jobs they hated, but they had no purpose. My work became my mission, my purpose, and that made the hours fly by. Finally, the most important lesson was that success is not a destination, but a habit. It wasn't a single product or a single client that got Mistrzostwom Europy to 10,000. It was the accumulation of small actions, an email sent, an article written, a satisfied client, a lesson learned. The real secret is not in a hack, but in the discipline of doing what is right, even when it's difficult. My third and most important mechanism wasn't a hack, It was a business strategy that completely changed my game. I went from being a simple service provider to a strategic partner. Instead of selling individual articles for a few dollars, I started offering value packages to my clients. The mechanism was simple. I packaged my services into monthly retainer offers. Instead of selling a single article for $100, I now sold a package that included 4 articles a month, content strategy, publication management, and reports, all for a monthly fee of, say, $10. This gave Mistrzostw from Europe something I had never had before, financial predictability. I no longer had to worry about where my next job would come from. My income stopped being a roller coaster and became a steady, predictable, and growing flow. This change not only allowed Mistrzostw from Europe to scale my earnings, but it freed up my time and mental energy. I could focus on delivering exceptional value to my clients, which led to more referrals and larger, higher quality clients. The contracts became more solid, and my clients' trust in my work skyrocketed. This was the step that sealed the deal and gave Mistrzostw from Europe the confidence to go after those high-value clients who, at the first, seemed unattainable. Suddenly, my business felt real. The day my bank account reached the 10,000 mark wasn't a loud celebration. There was no confetti, no party. It was a moment of deep and quiet reflection. I was sitting in front of my computer, looking at the numbers on the screen, and tears of relief, gratitude, and surprise began to fall. It wasn't the money that moved Mistrzostw from Europe, but what it represented. It wasn't just $10,000, it was tangible proof that my life had changed. It was the culmination of all the sleepless nights, the emails I sent, and the conversations I had. It was the end of the scarcity mindset. I could go to the grocery store and buy what I needed without looking at the price. An act so simple that it made Mistrzostw from Europe realize that true wealth is not a number, but the freedom from worrying about money. I didn't feel like a millionaire, I felt as if, for the first time, I was in control of my destiny. I felt worthy. The weight of failure that I had carried on my shoulders for years finally disappeared. At that moment, I understood that true success was not the money in the bank, but the person I had become to get there, a fighter, a learner, someone who had refused to give up. It was a sacred moment. I know what you're thinking. You've reached the point where money is no longer an immediate problem, and that is great. But now what? Your mind, like mine, must already be asking new questions. If you're not worried about how to make money, how can you ensure you keep it? And even more importantly, how do you avoid falling back into the old habits that led to failure in the first place? How can you scale from 10,000 to 100,000 or even $1 million? The truth is, reaching a goal is just the beginning. You face new problems. The game changes. It's not just about a growth mindset, but about a management mindset, a reinvestment mindset. It's a new phase, a new challenge. And you have to be prepared, because the problems of wealth are different from those of poverty, but they are still problems. It's a completely new stage in your journey. The good news is that you already have the tools and mindset to solve them. I promised you this video would give you a map. But a map is useless if you don't know your next destination. The answer to all these questions is the topic of the next video, where I'll show you the exact path I followed to scale my earnings and what helped Mistrzostw from Europe not to return to misery. And if you stay until the end of this video, I will give you the most important answer of all. Now, the moment of truth has arrived. You've made it this far, and that means you are seriously committed to your success. But watching this video is not enough. The real change comes from action. So, to take the next step, I ask for a commitment from you to Mistrzostw from Europe and to this community. First, comment your financial goal. Write in the comments what your first objective is, whether it's 1,000 or 10,000. By writing it, you make it real, you turn it into a public commitment that will give you the motivation you need. Plus, it will help us create a supportive community where everyone can encourage each other on this journey. Second, share this video with a person you know is going through a difficult situation or needs a dose of real motivation. Don't do it for Mistrzostw from Europe, do it for that person. The value of this content may be the turning point they need. And last but not least, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next video where I will reveal the strategy to scale to 100,000 and give you the answer to that question I asked you at the beginning about how to keep the money. And this concludes our story of how I went from being broke to earning my first 10,000. It wasn't about luck, it was about a system. And now, before you go, here is the answer to the question I promised you. How do you keep the money once you earn it? The answer is simple. You reinvest. You don't spend it. You don't celebrate right away. You reinvest it back into the source that created it, in your education, in better tools, in your business. It is the only way to ensure that the flow doesn't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop growing. Because true power is not in what you earn but in what you become. Thanks for watching.